Loneliness, silence, anxiety. Too many men are carrying it alone. I'm Jack Starr, powerlifter, personal trainer, aerialist, and ex-private investigator, and this is The Other Side of Tough. We're rewriting manhood one conversation at a time, and today I'm lucky to have Kyle Hinton. He's a writer, an award-winning writer, director. He's worked on such shows as iCarly. He's got a vampire episodic going on right now. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. But he's
It's a short. Oh, sorry.
and he's with Redefine the Byline also. He's a representative with them. Welcome to the show, Kyle. How are you feeling?
Thanks for having me. I'm feeling good today. The
Great.
sun's out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's been good weather. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your journey, about how you got into writing, directing, and what was your inspiration?
For sure. So I've always been a storyteller from a very young age, drawing like pictures and making like coordinating stories with them, creating characters. I used to sell notebook paper like stapled together in the sort of like book fashion, and I sold them for ice cream money in the second grade.
Oh, that's
that's
awesome.
my that's my earliest memory
You were
of.
selling zines in the second grade. That's
Yes,
amazing.
I was the first one on the scene, uh, because I really kept them to myself. But then people would, the kids would look over my shoulder and they're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Well, I have to make another. You can have it for 50 cents." Um, should have charged more. I didn't know how the economy works.
That's awesome.
Um, but I was really obsessed with TV, anything that came on. I used to love, I'm sure FX is still this way, where they would like show movies endlessly, all like movies that were just in theaters or like throwbacks. I mean, now they're kind of just throwbacks, but there was a time before Netflix where you could turn on a channel and be like, "Oh, I missed this movie, but here it is on my TV screen."
Hmm.
Um, and so yeah, just years of that, and then I don't remember exactly when I was like convinced I could do it for a living. That was sometime in college, but I knew I wanted to study filmmaking and all of that. But I really wanted to write for TV. That was for like I wasn't really thinking about directing, being an auteur. I was obsessed with Scandal, that show with Kerry Washington and Tony Goldwyn, and I wanted to do that. I really wanted to do that, but that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anymore. Seasons are 8 episodes, and
Okay.
they're more. They just have a different vibe to it these days. But I went to DePaul Film School. Interesting story about DePaul because it was called the College of Computing and Digital Media. They really wanted to push the STEM of it all,
Mm.
computer programming, and things like that. They actually were more interested in their business school, but the school with the program with the most students in it was the film program. So
Okay.
once I left it, they had changed the name of the of the digital media school to like the School of Cinematic Arts, what
Okay.
have you. Um, and there I really was like exploring the medium, what I wanted to say. I was really challenged a lot of what I wanted to say and who I wanted to be artistically, and that was a challenge because I was so obsessed with like the broad umbrella, big budget programs that try to go grab everyone, not seeing that the through line is that the people who are behind those things have a personal agenda. I couldn't think of a different word, but everyone has an agenda when they're an artist.
Yeah.
Okay. And I wasn't thinking about my agenda until the pandemic hit, and I
Okay.
was, trapped in a room, and not trapped. I wasn't. Well, no, I trapped myself in my bedroom. I could have went outside, at least on the block. Uh, but
More
I
hostage.
had, yes, with my own thoughts and dreams and aspirations. Like I was just listening to music a lot and crafting ideas for stories that I would eventually make. And one of those ideas was the vampire episodic thing. It was a TV series I had planned where it was he's the son of Dracula, long lost. It's like this whole tension because he's like half human, half vampire. He's like he was the savior to mankind in a way in the fight between good versus evil. um, it was really fun to make that, and then I got out here. I moved from Chicago to LA around 2021.
Okay.
Um, I think back about that thought process a lot. Like, why did I do that? It was kind of a now or never thing because LA was in a very particular point where the rent was
Mhm.
lower, um, and Zooming was very much like we didn't have to like there wasn't a pressure to be in office
Yeah.
for a lot of the so I had this internship that was LA based. I was like, if you're looking for someone to hire me.
Mhm.
And that happened pretty quickly. And then that's how I got the iCarly. I started in management.
Okay.
Did not like it. I don't like
You
management.
don't like management? Okay.
It took me a long time to realize I don't have the makeup to be someone's assistant. Like I need assistance. Um, Needless to say, that led me to the iCarly of it all because one of their managers there managed the showrunner of that series, and she was someone who I confided in with the Vampire Project.
Okay.
Did the show. It was amazing. I learned so much about storytelling and the relationship between the creatives and the studio and how to essentially make everyone happy in a
Okay.
sense that also, achieves that agenda you have, and telling a good story that touches people in particular ways. And then the show got canceled.
Okay.
And and I was really I was bouncing around between other different jobs. And I was really it had so much time had passed since the last time I was behind the camera
Mhm.
or wrote something that was eventually made. And so me and some of my friends I met out here were really pushing me towards making a short, but me being so TV brained and being episodically motivated,
Yeah.
um, I couldn't think of a short story, film idea. So I chose to make a proof of concept for that series, which then became the short that just got released called Eat.
Okay.
Um, Follow me on Instagram, Kyle X Jordan. It's in the bio. It's on OTV. Shout out to OTV, which is a Chicago-based streaming platform. Now they're all over the world. They've grown exponentially, but they are dedicated to platforming intersectional, queer, femme art and unpacking it all, gender, the
Yeah.
spectrum
Let's
that it is.
let's talk about a little bit about your identity and what you feel you're representative of, and how you express your identity in your art. Even if it is
What?
Dracula and having that duality, being a human and a
Mhm.
vampire, I think that maybe speaks to something like deeply inside of you. So tell us a little
It,
bit about that creative process.
so it took that, it, it's a great question. Because through the process of crafting that story, I was I was intentional about creating an imaginative story that felt like I was like doing something innovative with characters, and I was like trying to come up with like like not fantastical, but like complicated family dynamics, not realizing that I was pulling directly from my own life. I grew up with a single mother,
Okay.
and so I never knew my father.
Mm,
I met him once in passing because his mother, my grandmother, helped raise me a lot.
okay.
And I don't know why I went down this tangent. I was gonna say that because my main reaction was because he's bald. He's dead. Sorry. Um,
Mhm.
wow. I
No, it's
all
okay.
over the
You
place.
know what? We're all about being vulnerable here.
Yeah, we're being
And
vulnerable.
yeah, yeah, it's great.
He, God rest his soul. But I remember looking up at him and I'm like, oh my God, I might become bald. Either way, I thought that was funny, and so I was trying to infuse that into this pilot where Dracula essentially comes back to meet the main character
Uh-huh.
after abandoning him for years. He
Okay.
thinks out of his own safety because Satan is trying to kill the vampires, but now he's Anyway, back to my own personal thing.
This is
I
interesting.
I had realized through writing this that a lot of my characters got something going on with their parents. I always thought that it was just a very easy narrative device, but it's easy because it was lived experience. Um, and so that really got me starting to think more about um, my gender expression, how I show up in the world, and inadvertently what I think masculinity is. And well, this kind of, it got blown open by this class I took called Queer Theory 101. It was not a
Okay.
very in-depth dive into queer theory, but um, did a lot of reading, skimmed a bunch of topics all the way from the gender binary to marginalization and ableism and how that is transcends what we think about able bodies.
Okay.
Either way, I truly believe everything's a spectrum when it comes to gender and the social constructs that define masculinity and femininity.
Yeah.
Um, I carried that with me because that kind of broke down how it's not really tied to any particular biological sense. It's all constructed to help us process what the things that things that pre-exist us help us move forward essentially. But with that, it's like as time goes on, we're constantly redefining what those things mean
Yeah.
while also trying to hold on to what we were introduced to
Yeah.
upon being born. So I just kind of threw it out the window and decided to focus on Kyle, who Kyle is as a person in society who wants to build community and, and be a good person and contribute to other people's lives and live a life that is enjoyable and not centered around um, trying. Because I was so ambitious, but I was so ambitious. Like, not I am ambitious, but like I was so focused on being ambitious that I ignored everything else.
Yeah. And I'm
And
sure
that
that,
is a very male quality
yeah,
that I
it is.
or quote unquote,
And I'm sure, like, going into the entertainment business in Los Angeles, it is very much of that. Like, it's hard because it's hard to be authentically yourself because we're trying. You have to really compete with other people, and kind of like
Yeah.
that masculine thing you're talking about is you kind of have to be performative. You kind of have to be very like aggressive and pushy, and so how did you find navigating through that to maintain your authentic self in your creation and your art without it being filtered down or manipulated or, let's say, just shaped by the culture that Hollywood is?
Mm-hmm. I have an answer. I just the way you phrase the question just anyway, I'm just gonna answer.
It's a lot of parts. I'm really
It's a
sorry.
lot of parts. I was like, wait, there was a chord to this, but I'm just gonna say what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
It just came to I was like, so in Hollywood, there's like these writing fellowships that are supposed to like boost your career, transcend the ladder, and
Yeah.
now you're being mentored by like people with some weight in the industry. And to do that, you have to have like at least two samples of pilots or features that are really strong, but also are um, uh,
Unique.
unique, but also fit in with the landscape of entertainment that
Mm.
already exists. Like they don't want
They went marketable.
they want marketable, they want universal, they want something that they know what to do with because if they don't know what to and that's an even harder thing to do when you're black because they have never known what to do with black films, which is
Yeah.
why the marketing for them seem either like last minute or not at all.
Yeah.
Because because there's besides the default that is there's like white cinema and there's like ethnic cinema, but then what connect was all of it encompasses is that there is like masculine cinema and there's feminine cinema.
Mm.
The media that's geared towards, you know, men, teen boys, that 18 to 35 age range, and
Yep.
then the girls and gays. They don't really they just kind of shove
Oh, okay.
everything else
So it's not
over
very
there.
nuanced at all.
It's not nuanced, it's not fluid, at least
Mm.
when it comes down to marketability, because recently there have been films and TV shows that do try to circumvent that in a way to show us depictions of men and women who defy the traditional stereotypes that people magically gravitate to. Look at that.
Mhm.
But what you will constantly hear is people try to they tell you to put the pill that you want people to swallow in like a candied, like you want to cover it in what they are used to. Um, and I wrestle with that a lot because I don't I don't like to sugarcoat things. I need you to I need people to understand what that
You want to be raw with it.
I want to be raw with it.
Hmm.
And so when it comes to this vampire film where it's like so the vampire's a sex worker.
Hmm.
That's how he chooses to well, it's how he chooses to survive, but it's also like it's hard to survive as a vampire.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
especially in the digital age, if you really think about it. And sometimes it feels like being queer is like being a vampire. And
Oh,
that was the connection I was trying to make. Or
yeah.
not just being a vampire, but like being like a monster or like an enigma or a pariah in society. Like you see a person across the street and you're like, that's not one is not like the other. I remember my personal experience. I was in this YouTube video for Jubilee and I was watching reactions to it because I thought they were funny. And there was one guy I came across, and so it was like it's I don't know if you heard of Jubilee, but they do like these spot the liar, or there's a whole bunch of vegans. We're trying to figure out who is the meat eater, what
Oh,
have you.
okay.
So I was like, I was one of those, and this one guy was trying the mystery he was trying to solve was whether or not I was gay. This is
Mm.
the wrong. He was, I'm like, so you were watching the wrong show. That is not the topic. And also, I'm
uh,
not vegan because for some reason, it's a lot. It is anything that's not like identifiably traditionally masculine. There's like this knee jerk reaction to label it feminine,
yeah.
even though I would argue a lot of gay and queer men are the most masculine.
You know what?
I am I am
I'm
intimidated by
gonna
them.
put in my 2 cents here.
Mhm.
One of the most masculine men in history took over the world, the known world, in before he turned 30. And he had both a female and a male partner. His name is Alexander the Great. So the one of the
Mm.
greatest conquerors, one of the people we think of the most masculine, took over the known world before 30, was bisexual. So, that should challenge our images of masculinity. History should challenge, that, but we don't hear that. We don't hear um, those stories about these famous
No.
people.
And I so badly want to get into it. I went on a deep dive of like Greek mythology and the god Dionysus
Hmm.
because he is canonically bisexual. And he's also, to put it very so long story short, Dionysus is Jesus. Dionysus is like an emo Jesus. He just wants to free the hose and drink wine.
He wants
And
to
they hated him for it.
free those. That should be a shirt.
um, and it was, and people, and there are people who do, well, the gays know, but the
Mhm.
straights don't. But like the straights love a good, you know, Greek Roman myth. They love the
Yeah.
gladiators. We're all rallying behind the Odyssey. I have
Hmm.
some concerns, but I'm looking forward to a good movie. The only concern is that they were very shady towards like this guy who's like one of the last remaining like Grecian like armor makers. He's very meticulous about making like historically accurate armor. And they ghosted him. Pushing that aside. Pushing
Mhm.
that aside. I think a lot of people who are political thinkers, uh, culture influencers, even if it's conquering people,
Mhm. Yeah,
are to some level queer. I'm about to get into some very. I shouldn't say this one. No, I'm not going to say that.
that's okay. You say
But
whatever you want. You are free and open to
hey,
be you and say that's what I support here.
Donald Trump
Mm.
is that's drag. I see something in that soul that screams. I just that like just there's the
There's a
performance
lot of
of mass.
aggression there.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So his performance in trying to prove himself as I don't know why he's trying so hard to prove that he's a good president. I think he literally could do nothing,
Hmm.
and I think that would do a lot more than what he's doing now.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah.
but
100%.
he needs to not overcompensate. I feel like it's just to masquerade the
It is
fact that
great. Yeah.
because he was a reality TV queen.
Hmm.
He loves a drama. He loves a stunt.
Hmm.
That's not traditionally masculine.
No, and
Well, or
also
maybe you know,
as sassy and reactionary on his Twitter.
sassy.
Yeah, he's
He
very
if he
like.
directed all that energy towards stand-up comedy, even I
Hmm.
think we could have been living in a whole different reality.
Yeah, yeah, and you look at the people he hires, like Christy Noem's ex-husband. Like, do you hear about that?
Not yet.
I mean, he,
And that's I let's
like,
crack
I mean,
that wide open.
I support her husband in whatever choices he makes, right? But
Yeah.
it really does like put a hole in that whole like straight masculine like
Mhm.
right wing
The
facade. It's like,
manosphere.
you know
Yeah.
what, like there's people who are queer there and they're just not telling and
Mhm.
so
Or
yeah,
they're not telling themselves.
it's a reality. But going back to Redefine the Byline, an organization that you have really strongly affiliated yourself with, tell us how you became involved with them and tell us a little bit about the work they do and what they, contribute to really taking away the stigma of being bisexual, especially in the male community. Because I was telling Sarah Lynn this, she's also affiliated with Redefine the Byline. I was like, in the cis male community, if you say you're bisexual, you're gay, you're not bi, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just how it is. But so yeah, please, yeah, I would love to hear.
I'm actually trying to remember exactly how I discovered. Oh, you know what? No, I do. It's coming back to me. It's coming back to me because I like when I work on a project, I like to do an abundance of research.
Okay.
And when I was making the vampire show, I knew the main character was bisexual because it just made sense to me that he lived for a long time at some like over a century over at some point he was like let's dabble. But the dabbling there was like he started. I'm mostly intrigued because we don't see a lot in media,
Hmm.
and this is also my personal experience. I don't you don't have to get into my bisexual awakening. But I think there's something interesting about someone who a man male identifying who recognizes early on their attraction towards men,
Okay.
and because of society that's like they're forced to like try to unpack that, try to make sense of that, try to
Yeah.
excuse it, um, and then along the line discover an attraction towards women, And that makes it confusing because it's like, well, if I'm this, I can't be that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just blow it up. I wanted to blow it up like a pipeline. And so when I was trying to craft that story, I was I was aware subconsciously, but I wasn't actively aware of the stigmas that were painted onto bisexual characters in media. And so there was this guide that I think they posted. It was either them or a different organization where it was outlining all of the stereotypes that surround bisexuality, bi plus identities, um, and because I didn't want to perpetuate them,
Yeah.
um, because when it comes to traditional storytelling forms and the blueprints essentially, because
Yeah.
every story is kind of the same narratively in
Yeah.
terms of how they're constructed, and they're very heteronormative. They
Mm,
look there's the love interest is always some kind of, it's if the main character is masculine, the love interest is feminine,
yeah.
um, however that may look. And uh, I kind of wanted to not reinvent the wheel, but dress it up in a different, put a skirt on it, make it a
Challenge it.
challenge it.
Yeah.
Yes. And I want to shout out Jess King, my they are a professor at DePaul who showed me web series and how they're like Issa Rae and the Wonderful Life of Caleb Gallo. Who wrote that? Brian Jordan Alvarez, and how they're very like singular, they're niche, they're about a specific identity, and how they're challenging through comedy or through yeah, mostly through comedy, kind of showing the absurdity behind the systems that oppress us in a way.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and so tying it back to redefine the byline, they had this guide. I was like, I'm gonna follow it like the Bible, as I've been really learning about um, just how to handle ourselves with care, because sometimes there's a lot of unlearning in the process that is ongoing, because
Yeah.
sometimes you may even perpetuate something you don't mean to perpetuate on yourself,
Mhm.
simply because it's embedded in you from decades of media you've ingested,
Yeah. Or
and
even
they
your heritage,
your
like your own.
heritage, your parents. Yes, I remember this one core memory. No one in my family remembers it, but I was watching Modern Family. I wasn't even a fan of the show. I was waiting. I was waiting for The Simpsons to come on.
Oh yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
on, and I was like, okay. And then my mom walks in, and she's like, "You like this?" And it's like the two dads with the daughter, and I was
Uh-huh.
like, "Well, not really, but now you're making me feel weird about watching it." So it's like things like that where it's like they perpetuate like the societal messages, and you internalize it and you carry that with you up until you're like think differently. And it's so easy to say things differently, but it takes repetition.
Yeah.
Which, another shout out, I wrote it in the questionnaire, but Judith Butler writes a lot about the questioning and then the ongoing process of like becoming and constantly questioning your identity, which is another thing that is not taught to men and boys.
Yeah. And that's like a issue that we really address in the podcast here a lot, is kind of for a male to be confident and to be someone
Mhm.
who, people feel safe to be around, they have to be authentically themselves, and they have to kind of go through an ego death. Like these masks that we wear or we create so we fit into society, school, our jobs, or whatever. And we lose sight of our authentic true selves by layering these masks that we have to wear throughout the day as men. And I feel like at least women culturally have more tools and more support to explore that, explore
Yeah.
masks that we wear and break them down and be vulnerable and get to like the true root of who we are, the true authentic self. A lot more women go to therapy than men do, and that's where that type of work, is done. So, going back to what you were saying, yeah,
Mhm.
it is an issue with men trying to identify that authentic self.
And if I could just pick a little bit more at that,
Please.
the women having like the systems of like not support systems, but also resources in kind of, I call them scripts,
Okay.
like the scripts of life that are given to you when you're young and your parents tell you like certain things and things like that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to women and their psychological well-being, it's kind of stems from this patriarchal like men for centuries have been trying to understand women but not understand men in the
Hmm.
same way, which is why we have extensive like either ethically or unethically extensive knowledge because I just went through a whole deep dive of hysteria, of female hysteria. It was shocking. They're like, why are you being so buggy? Oh, you have never experienced an orgasm. These are scientific studies. And it's like, so if we're doing this, if we're trying to unpack, like analyze head to toe, inside and out women, why don't we do the same for men?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, why are there 5, 7 different types of birth control for women, but but we give men plastic,
Yeah.
rubber.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
And
just castrate yourself. Nah,
yeah.
that's not, I'm sorry, that's not that's not what's it called? Vasectomy? That's not castration, but you know what I mean. Some men feel like it is. And it's
Okay.
like, I just want to let's go back to the topic because I was going to jump into another tangent.
No, no
Um,
worries. No, this is very interesting. But yeah, it's like going back to redefine the byline.
yes.
How did you directly get involved with them? What was like did you sign up? Did you
The
talk?
crux was that they had this program that they wanted to highlight bi plus writers.
Okay.
Um, Specifically to get them published in publication. I have never written for publication before, but I've always been interested in writing articles, journals. I was at a point where I was like, why did I spend so much time learning one way of writing and
Yeah.
not all of it? Because I like doing all. I like to think,
Hmm.
and I had wrote like one medium, yeah, that like it's basically Substack, but not Substack. Um, Article about like pop culture things, and I was like, well, why not learn how to do it for gender identity and trying to make some political call to actions. Um, and I was accepted. We had a whole workshop about the topics you want to discuss. And during that time, there, so this was 2023.
Okay.
2023, Challengers that came out that winter, spring, summer, that early part of the year,
Hmm.
and got everyone in a tizzy. All of a sudden, everyone's bisexual.
Hmm.
But what was also happening at that time where I was just noticing a lot of conversations on social media for one reason or another about women's reaction to bisexual men and how they will never date them. And I was
Oh
like, why?
wow.
What's
I
going
never.
on here?
Yeah.
It's you would have to it's like all of so I never discount the comment section. As an artist, a creative, people tell you to ignore it because that's how you go stir crazy. You're like ingesting
It can hurt
opinions like
bad.
assholes. They're like everyone has one, but you don't need to look at it.
Hmm.
Um, but I was really trying to sit here because I'm like, well, no, these are not bots. These are regular people walking around, hundreds of comments, all saying roughly the same thing with thousands of likes. These are
what
people
what
who
were they?
believe it was essentially like it was all misinformation about HIV and AIDS. It
Uh,
was actually so the inherent problem is that bisexuals are cheaters. That's like this. That's just the general stereotype, which I
that's what
just
I
think
hear
is
a
like,
lot. Yeah.
and it confused me that that's so prevalent when straight men have secret families.
They do.
Like
They do.
there's a whole genre of film and TV dedicated to mistresses.
Yeah.
Scandal, for example. So
Like,
it just was confused me that these women and occasional men, because even gay men were saying these things, not as much, but there were
uh,
some, about
do you think
how,
there's real quick? Do you think there's kind of like a stigma between gay men and bi men? Like you're not really
yeah,
part of the community because you're kind of like,
yeah, especially if you have a girlfriend, which I bounce back and so it's like, okay, so I'm currently working on a bisexual rom-com where I'm trying to unpack that. So I'm kind of trying to
yeah.
show all the sides and trying to come to a point. And it's difficult because it's like when there's like a straight, no, a bisexual couple, but it's like a man and a woman.
Yeah.
There's the consensus there about whether or not that relationship is queer is up in the air. I do believe that relationship is inherently queer. However, I do think it can take up space in queer spaces. Let's say you're at a bar, a
Okay.
gay bar
Yeah.
specifically. Everyone, well, no. The last time I was at a gay bar, not every gay bar is like this, but this particular one, before I think they just closed down and got bought by someone else. It's like Maddie's now.
Okay.
Rocco's. Either way, I was there and everyone had a boy. There was a lot of mixed couples there.
Okay.
A lot of boy girl couples. I'm like, where are the gays? I was like, who can I dance with? Um, and it's like moments like that where it's like we couth, I think is needed there. Um, and I think there's a tiptoe there because I feel like, yeah, I can't say for sure. I'm not in these men's minds, so I can't say for sure. But I think there's a
Yeah.
comfortability there,
Okay.
where you have the space to be bisexual, living
Hmm.
your truth,
Yeah.
but also you have the scripts to live a heteronormative life.
Yeah. You can fit in.
Essentially, you can
Yeah.
fit in. That's what I mean
Yeah.
to say. All that
Yeah.
to say, you can mask, if you will.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think gay men have an issue with that, and I feel like that's within their right because it's like, well, why can you fit in? And
Yeah.
they
I
want
mean,
to
it's
make a
kind of like
registry.
it's like I'm fighting this fight, and
Hmm.
you're like I'm being targeted a lot, but you're really, you're saying you're part of this fight, but you're not being
Hmm.
targeted because of the presentation of you having like a heteronormative or a hetero, relationship. Even
Hmm.
though you may, have interests in, homosexual relationships.
Right, right. And but then on the other side of it is like bisexuals are being isolated by the left and the right. Not politically. I mean like
Mm,
by straights and gays.
yeah.
Yeah, you know. Um it's difficult. It's a difficult, but see if society had earlier on, like before we even got here, so that we wouldn't have to have these discussions
Yeah.
if there was some acceptance of fluidity before
Hmm.
at some point, like we just did away with concrete binaries, we wouldn't
Yeah.
have gotten here. But I also think it falls back on women a lot because
Mm,
women, in the grand scheme of the history of America, have just entered the workforce, have just gotten political social economic agency,
yeah.
um, and so now the gender rules are like all up in the air. And so when you asked, was there a crisis in masculinity? I think so, because I don't feel like anyone really knows what that is, because they um, men are out here masculizing women for wanting to be leaders of their own lives,
Yeah.
and then calling men beta males for encouraging it. I don't know. I have completely
Beta.
tuned out. I am completely tuned out the whole alpha beta because it just hurts my brain because I'm like, what are you? There's so people are dying. So people are dying. People need help. And there was this one video where this trans woman was outlining that straight men are more comfortable are that more comfortable, well, yes, more comfortable and more preoccupied fighting femininity rather than standing up to other men who are destroying the world and
Yeah.
hurting communities, and stealing from communities. Oh my gosh, the data centers nowadays, have you been hearing about like the politicians just selling out to the AI of it all, and then just selling out their communities to rely on the natural resources. Well, obviously we all rely on natural resources, but they're selling it out to. Have you
Well,
heard
I
about this?
know that I know for one thing, because I was in New Mexico earlier this year, and the AI, these AI facilities rely so much on water, and there's actually a
Hmm.
water crisis in New Mexico because these AI farms
Yeah.
bought up all the water, and so New Mexico is one of the poorest states in the country as is. So people who are in poverty are now short on water because of AI.
Yeah.
That's what I know about the
Well, essentially,
serious
yeah, and
effects
that's
of that.
happening all over the place in residential and rural areas that people
Hmm.
don't really think about. At least people with platforms and things like that, because especially political platforms, because it seems like uh, the dominant conversations we're having is trying to protect the traditional roles that men and women play in society, and it's just I don't know why that's the priority.
Yeah, yeah.
You
So let,
know?
let me ask you this. Because I feel that me personally, I feel that masculinity is important in society, just as
Mhm.
femininity is, just as
Oh,
non-binary.
sure.
Like
Yeah.
we, any a person who's non-binary, they do have masculine traits, and they've got to express that and own that just as much as they do their feminine traits and that sort of thing. But how do you think we can solve this, crisis of identity, this crisis in masculinity that we're facing? What can we do as a society or culture to start reversing some of these, harmful effects that these outdated, views of masculinity have? Like, one statistic I keep showing up is that men are 6 times more likely to commit suicide than women.
Yeah.
So it is a real crisis, and it is really affecting men a lot. And I always say this too, is that it's a crisis that men created for themselves, and that
Yeah.
the new generation is like dealing with. So how do you think? What kind of steps do you think we need to take to solve this issue?
That's so funny you said steps because so many things flew into my mind that I had to write it down. I
Yeah,
had to, I had to write it down. Um, Give me a second.
no problem. Take your time, please. It's a tough question.
It is a tough question. You're asking me to solve the world.
I know I am. That's what this
um,
podcast is about. We're trying to
I'll,
save men.
yeah, mankind is in need of saving.
It is.
I'll open with saying that I have flirted with non-binary androgyny, trying to marry masculinity and femininity within myself.
Yeah.
Um, Starting very basically with the way I dress, because for most people, that is how we practice, perform our gender.
Okay.
Um, and I was so frustrated in with the way I looked because it looked so men's clothes is so plain. Men's like across, and it was so bothersome to me
Mm-hmm.
because I want some whimsy. You look back, but then you go to thrift stops, and there was a time. like in the 70s and 80s, where fluidity was like in vogue.
Oh yeah, like hair
And
rock. Hair rock
mhm,
is like so androgynous.
makeup, the
Yeah.
nails, and it
Like,
really clued me into how cyclical these things are. So
mhm.
that's what gives me hope because I'm like, I feel like we're circling back to well, we already have kind of circled back to that kind of mind frame and aesthetic.
Okay.
But I think the problem here is also we're trying to marry the old with the new in
Mm.
terms of because when we think about what is positive and healthy masculinity as opposed to toxic masculinity, to me it reads as masculinity with a touch of femininity.
Yeah. Like
Like
being gentle, being strong but
being
gentle.
exactly. And when
Yeah.
you grow up with a single mom, you're you kind of see that it's all the same in a
Hmm.
way. Women have different challenges, they bleed.
Yeah.
So it's gonna look different. But at the same time, women are as equally capable of being assertive, strong. Um, the strong female leaders was a whole was had ripped through the zeitgeist with how ever since like Scandal or Quantico, there's been a big boost of female-led TV shows. It's gone down. I will say I read the reports every year. It's gone down. I blame the administration. Um, and no, because I laugh, but it's true because
Do you think
the
that
industry
maybe
does pay attention to.
that half, do you think that it's maybe because these executives see that half the country votes for misogyny, and so they're like, you know what, like we've got to tone it down and like be just a
Yeah.
little bit more misogynistic, you know? Do you
No,
think
exactly.
that's why?
I do. But I don't think that's what people want. I don't
Mm,
think people know what they want, which is why they voted the way they voted, and they're now saying that they regret the way they voted.
yeah.
Um, pushing that along. I also think that with these conversations, and men needing support systems,
Yeah.
I feel like traditionally it has always led to men finding support from women and not other men. And I
Yeah.
think from a very early age, that's got to be not only like men supporting men, but also men supporting men and like I think the isolation between the school of thought between men and women has led to the isolation. Like
And I think that
it,
I think that something that contributes to that is something in society where fathers aren't being present. You know, statistics say
yeah,
1 in 4 men grow up without a father that stays around. You know, to raise
hmm
them, and so we don't have. I was talking to my therapist about this the other day, and there's not a lot of you know strong male mentors for us, and we're
yeah,
not taught to commune together,
hmm
because if you like if you have like a tight close guy friend, it's like, what are you, gay, or like,
right.
stigma to it. It's like, why are you pouring out your emotions to me, bro? That's kind of sus, like I'm trying to use
Or they're just
some
like not listening. They're like, oh, that's
um
crazy.
but yeah, it's harming men. It's men
Yeah.
are holding back these feelings, and I know because I've been through this myself. I
hmm
suffer through anger issues, and I've had to do anger management. I've had to do therapy, because I've repressed feelings for 40 years, and like
Yeah.
these vulnerabilities, and they're just opening up now, and I'm just like getting into them. And that's part of the reason I did this podcast, is because I don't want to be a voice telling men how to be. Instead, I want to take a journey with men and try to figure it out with them, because I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm
That's
trying to figure it out.
and there's power in saying you don't know. Because that's the another thing that I've noticed a lot with men who are like very clearly lonely,
Hmm.
especially online. They
Yeah.
will. Where was I going with this? Um, it's just well, one, I think men need more female friends on top of male friends. Like I think men need to know how to be friends with women because
Yes.
if you ask a child, a teenage boy, not even a teenage boy, a 9-year-old they will think a girl is a whole different species.
Yeah.
And that isolates, and how you think that makes women feel, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so, and oh, the comment about lacking male
Mentor.
figures in the home,
Yeah.
mentors, yes.
Yeah.
I so I come from a very unique, I feel,
Okay.
experience. I had a lot of brothers growing up and male friends who were like emotionally expressive. Maybe that's just because I was in artist circles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it lends itself towards that. Gay and heterosexual. There was
Yeah.
actually a time where most of my friends were straight, and I there was no problem with that, except that I did have a problem with it because I'm like, where are the gays at? I was in the Midwest though. I was in the Midwest.
Yeah. Okay. I'm
I
from the
remember in my
Midwest
high
too.
school, there was literally two other gay guys
Mm.
out and proud.
Mm-hmm.
No bisexuals. I think
Mm-hmm.
I was the only person. No, I wasn't. That's unfair to say. But there was a time where it got back to me that someone was they distinguished me as the bisexual one. And I didn't like how that felt.
Okay. Okay. You didn't like
I
to
was like,
be.
that's an odd title. That's an odd label to the bisexual one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll
Yeah.
take it. But my name's Kyle.
Yeah.
Um,
You're more than that. Yeah.
but yeah. But to the steps to save mankind,
Yeah.
learning how to be friends with women and not just be lovers.
Yeah. And I think that's
Um,
the point
because
because.
with the scripts guide you to marriage and have
Mhm.
kids, they don't
Yeah.
teach you to have, a friend group that's mixed and multicultural and multigenderal.
Yeah.
Made that word up. Um, Another point I wanted to touch on was the whole, like, I feel like this transcends the left and the right.
Okay.
This rejection of the whole they them-ness of it all.
Okay.
I think people are so tied up in having to not even like being required, but being asked to respect people's like pronouns and gender identity, that they're not interrogating why gender identity exists in the first place.
Yeah,
Um,
let's talk about that real quick because that's something actually I've kind of struggled with being a Gen X
mhm.
guy. I'm like over
Yeah,
40 and stuff like that, and so it like I'm gonna be honest, it does come off as confusing.
yeah.
Like having the pronouns and stuff because I've never experienced that before. So me, someone who's ignorant, if you could maybe tell me the significance and the importance of having pronouns and making those distinctions and why it's being respectful.
Um, so it's kind of like this.
Okay.
Let's say you married someone, they have young children, and now you're being called upon to help parent them.
Okay.
You may like doing that.
Hmm.
And there comes a point where they start calling you dad.
Okay.
You're not their biological father,
Mm.
but emotionally,
You've
what
been.
feels good is being filling that role.
Yeah.
It's you identify with it.
Hmm.
And you expect people to respect your role in that dynamic.
You're gone. So like someone saying like you're not his real dad, like that's very hurtful, especially if you built that bond and connection. That's a really good example.
Exactly. And so when people so when it I'm gonna go one at a time. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
have
yeah, no problem.
ADHD,
I'm
so I
sorry.
want
I'm
to say
getting
two things at
a
the
lot.
same time.
Yeah.
Um, so when people, so when you have this journey where you're feeling like you want to change how you appear,
Okay.
want to change how you show up in the world,
Hmm.
while also using language that has been there since the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like it's the energy to respect that is no more than expecting someone who is a parent to someone they didn't birth.
Yeah.
Um, but also with that, I will say that even in that example, I feel like that was very taboo
Hmm.
I can't pinpoint a year. I can't
Yeah.
pinpoint, but I'm sure it was taboo to have a parent to have a child, a mixed family,
Yeah,
an unconventional and untraditional family
definitely.
dynamic.
I mean, it's become a
Um,
lot more normal now, but yeah, I mean,
yeah.
back in the day, it sure was. It was
Hmm.
something very new.
And I feel like that's the case with a lot of things because we use language to identify with the world and
Okay.
communicate with the world around us. And so as it grows, or as it develops,
Yeah.
new ideas, new information become about, it's going to change. And I do feel bad for especially like old gays who
Mm.
may have come out in their 30s or 40s. I have no idea what that's like.
Mm.
Because the timing of it all is
Mm.
um and it is confusing. It is, but what transcends all of this is just having like a sense of grace,
Yeah.
holding grace for yourself first and then others, because I feel like a lot of people don't hold grace for themselves because a lot of people don't like to be corrected, which is why I wrote down here, when you said you're being open about not knowing something or being ignorant.
Yeah.
uh, a lot of people, okay, well, it is used as an insult to a lot of people. I've used it as an insult, but people
Uh,
get people are they feel their ego gets hit when they are addressed with, when someone calls them in and tells them that they're wrong,
yeah.
especially men being men tradition.
Traditionally.
Because I hate to do a generalization, but they
Yeah.
hate being told they're wrong.
Okay.
And so when they what I'm hypothesizing with the suicide rates of it all, the depression and the
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, is that a lot of men and boys know that the path they're on is not beneficial, but they
Mm-hmm.
don't know anything else because
Mm.
they haven't been taught to inquire about anything else, or
Yeah.
that they can just be themselves and not have to see. It's like the seeking of validation in others is always going to lead you down a troubling path because you
It's almost
might.
like the assertiveness overshadows curiosity, which is needed
Yes.
in learning. And that's what I see. Like when I say I'm ignorant, I come from a place where it's not knowing, but it's curious. I think there's another type of
Yes.
ignorance where it's like someone takes pride in their ignorance.
Hmm.
There is
They
no
don't
growth.
need to know.
Yeah,
They know
they don't
everything they
know.
already know. They
Yeah.
became, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to reject this idea that once you become to, like, you get to adulthood at the miraculous age of 18. um
If you call that an adult, I don't know if I was, but
the
keep going.
they I because it changes every time. If it's something, if it's a crime, charge them as an adult.
Mm,
If they do something stupid, it's like, oh, they're 18.
yeah.
But it's like, so at what? Well, I mean, that was a bad. That was oranges to apples because I do think crimes should be handled. I This is going to get to a whole different abolition conversation. The topic of this conversation. Because if I had it my way, jails would look a lot. They wouldn't be. We would have something else. We would do something else. And I think the condition, have I had it my way, would not lead someone to murder and steal and rape.
Yeah. I mean,
Backing away from that.
I do I do believe in crime and punishment, but one thing that I feel that's lacking, that would solve a lot of crime and punishment is, in the 80s when we eliminated like mental health services.
Yeah.
And then we saw a big spike in homelessness and crime, because we eliminated those mental health services. So I think, like, I have a master's degree in criminal justice, and it's always a question. It's like, why does crime, persist, and what is the root cause of it? And especially now, we see a lot of, and this is like, going along with the whole masculinity crisis, is it's a mental health crisis
Yeah. And it's
also.
happening a lot with young boys. It's actually scaring me how it's, I feel like it's always been the case. Like, young boys doing crime has never been not a thing.
Yeah, it's
But
always.
the violence it's kind of escalating in a way.
and
And
it's
I'm not just talking
celebrated.
school shooters.
It's
And
kind of
it's celebrated.
like in social media and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And
Mhm.
yeah, it is a real issue.
Yeah, and yeah. Sorry, I got bummed out there.
No, I know.
But
And like, I mean, I think that's the challenge for you as an artist is,
yes.
because that kind of violence and, reactionary behavior and, gangster type of behavior. I'm not talking about like ethnically either, white or black. You know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
all have the celebration of criminality, whether it's a great show, Peaky Blinders, or, some other,
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? But it's a celebration of violence, and it's in all
Yeah.
cultures. And I wish, as being an older, wiser man, that there was more, positive things about men doing positive things without violence, because that's
Mhm.
all we're shown is that men get stuff done with violence, and that's why our prison systems are so full.
No, yeah. Yeah. And that's the things that's draw because in when you have this digital age where the younger you are, the more access you have to the internet that now has no safeguards, it has no guardrails. Um, they have access to they trivialize these images and they memify them. They don't take anything seriously.
Mm.
That's a wide statement there. I've met some teenagers who I'm like, okay, you got a good head on your shoulders. There is hope in the world. Um, but en masse, it's like, do you play video games?
Yeah.
I have lately. It's I just mute the voice chat. I can't ingest because
Oh yeah, like the
there's at
MMOPs
any
and stuff
point in time, yes, at
online.
any point in time, you'll hear a young child hop on the mic and say the worst thing you've heard all day.
Oh,
And I'm just sitting there like, well, where did you hear that from? Well, I know
yeah.
where you heard it from. It was TikTok. Um, but they say it so flippantly that they don't really like the R word has made a huge comeback. I'm
Yeah.
gagged. I'm like, when do we start saying the R word again? What
Oh,
needs
jeez.
what people need to be worried about is the T word, which is therapy. Um, but yeah, but like also so going back to these depictions of a softer male, a more
Oh,
positive, peaceful, vulnerable
yeah.
image and tying that with the masculine versus femininity of the marketing and the media is
Yeah.
that these corporations they're not really invested in that because they don't see the dollar signs there. They don't see the dollar signs in positive male because you know what the dollar signs are filled prisons.
Yeah. Yeah. And war. And
That's
war.
and war and
Yeah.
war. The way they've been talking about this war, I don't like it. It's superseding. It's superseding alpha male behavior. I don't know if I started watching the news more because his last term, I ignored it all. I
Okay.
ignored it all to protect my peace, and then
Yeah.
they elected him again. So now I'm trying to really get into the weeds of why.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pete Hegseth,
Yeah.
it's been refuted and debated, but they're saying he's in that Pentagon perpetuating doomsday,
Yeah. I heard about that.
like toxic Christianity,
Yeah.
like we need to. The violence is the way
Apocalyptic.
to bring apocalyptic. There you go.
Yes. Yeah.
Apocalyptic rhetoric about how essentially destroying the Middle East will bring back Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
And
worry
what's
that they
about
really
that?
believe this.
The funny
We can
thing
get into
about
Jesus.
the funny thing about that is that these leaders, you know, they're they they like they say they're Christians, right? But we're finding out through like the Epstein files and stuff that they worship
Oh
Paul.
yeah.
They are harming children, and there's even some cases where they say they eat children. So you know,
And when I tell you, you should see my face when I read. I had to close my laptop because
yeah,
what do
it's
you
horrible.
mean?
Yeah, and so these are the people that are telling us about good and evil.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm very I'm always against war, but yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really against this one because you know, especially with what you're saying, that like apocalyptic language, that's the most hypocritical thing ever. Because if
Yeah.
one country that should be in hell and brimstone and all that,
Mm-hmm.
that's right
It's true. It's true. Just
here.
down the street.
Yeah.
Um, and on that note about the Christianity of it all, I'm
Mhm.
not Christian. Sorry, mom.
Mhm.
I just can't. My beliefs just don't my beliefs don't aren't that strong in the text, if that makes sense. But I do love the gospel. T- DePaul is a Catholic university, quote unquote, because their
Yeah.
mascot's a demon.
Uh-huh.
But they do require you to take one religion class. You can take any religion class,
Okay.
but I wanted to unpack the New Testament because it had traumatized me.
Oh.
Um, but in actually reading it for myself from a historical standpoint, I'm like now really understanding why people are so wrapped up in Jesus. Is because one, it's the perfect good versus evil story.
Yeah.
It that story is better than Harry Potter.
Mhm.
That is Percy Jackson in The Lightning Thief.
Yeah.
That is true, like good overcoming evil because you're regular, degular, but you've been called on by something more powerful than yourself to do something great. But the problem is, I feel like a lot of people use, especially Christo fascists, use Jesus as a way to circumvent personal accountability in the sense that they call on Jesus to do all of the work of answering the prayers, establishing peace, punishing our enemies. Uh, when you, well, not the punishing the enemies part. So ain't nobody answering that prayer. Um, but we are the bringers of our own peace,
Mhm.
essentially,
Yeah.
and we need to be doing the work to, even if it's down the street at Skid Row. Now,
Yeah.
something little, something small, all over the place will lead to something, collective greater. Like, what is stopping me or you from busting out some loaves of dishes and giving it to the homeless?
Yeah.
What's stopping the government from doing that? All
Mhm.
of our money's going there.
Yeah.
And then they want to condemn communism as if almost every infrastructure in our society doesn't have a pool of funds
Mhm.
that is equally distributed to
Yeah.
maintain the services.
Yeah.
People like paying taxes. People don't mind. Well, I feel like they don't even care, but they don't mind paying certain fees to get their to on top of their own services, not knowing that the fees they're paying is going towards access for everyone who wants to use that service. So why
Mhm.
not consolidate? I understand why not consolidate that with the government because the government can't be trusted.
Yeah.
But maybe if we elect the people we could trust,
Mhm.
that wouldn't
Mhm.
be the case.
Yeah.
But people don't vote.
No.
So people we can't trust slide up into Congress, and then now, yeah,
Yeah.
um,
You know, it's because there are special interests, and they control both
mhm,
parties, and they
yeah,
also, in Hollywood, like they can protect who they want to, like, get into certain positions, and if you don't meet that qualification, then or if you're not going to be a yes man, if you're not going to do their bidding,
you're
then
never heard from again.
power.
At least not in a massive way. All of a sudden, you're on Instagram looking a whole mess, talking about how they chew you up and spit you out.
Hmm.
It's a
Yeah.
shame. It's a shame. Um,
That's
where I made all my points. I did. All that to say, we need to embrace androgyny,
okay.
fluidity.
Hmm.
The men versus women. Stop it.
Yeah, we need to
Stop it.
like talk more. And like that's one thing that
Yes.
I've been
Instead of
trying
debating,
with this
talk.
podcast is get women
Mhm.
on, because that's like the important perspective that a lot of these male spaces are missing, is the female perspective, because they know our problems better than we do in a lot of cases. And
Yeah.
talk to some really intelligent women, and they've opened my mind a lot,
Mhm.
to these issues, because it's like you can't see the splinter in your own eye. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Someone else has to see that. And yeah, like
Oh,
I
but you feel it. You feel that splinter.
Yeah. Yeah. You do feel it for sure.
And I trust you to have those constructive conversations because I've seen the clips from the Manosphere podcast where they'll have a woman on to simply to just debate so they can have like a hot clip of like either them, what is the term they
Owning.
use? Owning, which is okay. Owning her or her owning you, and then the comments are always like, "Oh, she just bullshit,"
It's like, what's your
and it doesn't
body?
really get anywhere. Right, right. And then
Uh,
and then it's like even the questions being asked, you're like, "This isn't a sincere conversation at all.
yeah. It's not getting. It's not any substance. It's not
It's
any.
not of any substance."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think those are all great points. I do think that men need to embrace certain aspects of femininity. They need to be open to their personal identities and not be masking,
Mhm.
and be brave in that way. And
And I'm gonna sprinkle this on top.
a challenge.
Um, Embracing aspects of femininity without tying that to being more like women.
Mm,
Because I feel like that's what's keeping a lot of men. It's dressed up in a way where it's like where they think of femininity, they think of women.
yeah.
Which sure, the whatever the term it is for when you hear a word and the image comes to mind, you can't help that.
Yeah.
You literally can't. But challenging that and trying to, because I feel like what also challenges that is identifying masculinity in women and not using that as a way to take away from their womanhood.
I like to use the terms, for me at least, I like to use the terms divine femininity and sacred masculine. And,
Okay.
like divine femininity is things like nurturing, is empathy, is care, and things for, sacred masculinity is being safe, is protecting, is having that sense of logic and calm when chaos is surrounding yourself.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I really try to embrace like those terminologies, not so much as the sex identified um
Hmm.
you know uh terminologies is like, oh, like that looks female or that looks male, but more of the more spiritual, deeply important roots of, what is, that divine feminine, what
Yes.
is that sacred masculine that we so need in society and culture, because they are so important because they promote community. And I feel like what's happening in modern society with male and female, it's not creating community, it's creating little islands. And these
Yeah.
islands are very dangerous because, their information is filtered. They're not seeing everything that's around themselves. And so I think that if we embrace these, like, positive masculine and positive feminine roles, or, even like deeply spiritual, aspects about ourselves, then we're going to be more open to be communal with people and work together, um, as a community.
Yeah. I agree.
Nice.
I wrote that down because
Glad you did.
I have never heard sacred masculine,
Hmm.
and I like that. I like that.
Nice.
It conjures images of like deities.
Yeah, and I have a lot of female friends, and for me, sacred masculine is that a female feels safe around me. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
There's a
about
warmth.
like, oh, I've got big muscles, or oh, I'm
Yeah.
like, the
Which
typical male
mhm,
things that we see. It's more about being someone that they find that they can find a peace at. And a lot of the women that I've talked to, it's like, you know, like we talked about things that are red flags, green flags. And one of the women on the panel says, it's like there's all these hurt men, and it's just they've got all these problems and they just don't feel safe. I just want to be with a man that has his shit together and that's safe to be with and that's regulated. and that's what I try. It's hard, like I have my meltdowns every once in a while. So
Well, we all do.
continue,
Like the
continue.
human psyche is a very fragile thing,
Yeah,
and we just need we all need is just the tools to help process it. Not necessarily manage or control it, but just process it. Like taking
yeah,
a beat to just critically think about the way we feel.
yeah.
And I laugh because there's also this massive rejection of critical thinking,
Mm,
especially among young people,
yeah.
where this phrase, like, it's not that deep, has gotten, like, it's out of hand. It's
Mhm.
out of hand. Everything, I would argue that everything is that deep.
It is. It really is. It is.
But when but tying it back to like the digital of it all,
Yeah.
when you're inundated with messages telling you that are messages that aren't deep, but the meaning behind those messages are, but you're not really engaging or haven't been taught how to engage. Because I don't know if you've also heard about the way the educational system has shifted. It's not really geared towards understanding why, is just learning what
Just getting the answer.
learning just getting the answers,
Mm.
learning what words are, not what they mean in the historical. I wasn't really taught historically what words meant, but that takes a natural curiosity that I just have.
Yeah.
But like at least le- having like lessons geared around trying to break down things instead of just learning things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you
Because I
mean.
think that would
In things.
lend people
Finding,
more to being able to, oh, sorry, what to say?
I said finding the deeper meaning or nuance in things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because once you like learn that, you train that muscle, I feel like it's only natural that you would then work that on yourself once your brain develops. These last few years, I'm 27. These last few years have rocked my soul apart. I
Yeah.
have,
It must be really hard for someone who's, in the gay community and a person of color, to see this and feel very like attacked.
yeah. And I try not, and then I try to put my feet on the ground. I
Hmm.
go outside because what keeps me going is that when I go out and engage with the world,
Yeah.
none of that madness touches me.
Hmm.
Well, I am in California, in Los Angeles, no less. So
It's a little bit
that's
better.
a it's a little bit better, and there's a privilege of that in and of itself. Even when I was in Chicago, bigotry was never. Well, I keep seeing stories where there was one story from my hometown where I was like, really,
Mhm.
blackface, in
Oh,
2024,
that's crazy.
but no shade. um, but yeah, I've just been very lucky not to have
Experience.
those experiences with someone where I unfortunately have, because I'm kind of at a point where I'm not in the business of educating someone who doesn't want to be educated.
Okay.
And I actually might get a little disrespectful because refusing education, new information, is offensive, actually. Why
Mm.
don't you want to know more about what's happening around you?
Yeah.
It's giving like you're disregarding humanity.
Yeah. And well, in a lot of cases, they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Especially when it's older people. No
Yeah.
shade, but I when I was not growing up, now that I'm in, getting into like adult spaces in the workforce and things like that, the grocery store even, all of the sectors of society that now have to take myself without apparent guidance. I just assumed everyone had their shit together.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
assumed that at a certain age you would just, and certain people in a certain journey, it's just so much
Some people
that
get worse when they get older.
some people get worse.
Yeah. A lot of people do. A lot of people do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame.
And so it's a lot of managing that as well. It's choosing your battles essentially.
Yeah.
But I've been lucky enough to not have to come across an unruly adult that I have to then live stream their antics. I would say the worst I've come across is the drivers of LA.
Oh
It
yeah,
is,
that's
but that's infectious. I also have a little bit of an ego behind the wheel. I'm not gonna lie.
man.
I
I
just got
get
a RAV4, and
ridiculous. I had to
it's
go to therapy for it. I had to go to therapy for the 405.
and that's real, and that's real
It
because
is.
why is that Mad Max Fury Road? It's
Yeah.
like the primal instincts jump
Mhm.
out, like you feel like you're on the battlefield
It
trying to
is.
merge.
It is. It is a war. It is a war on that road for sure.
Because why can't we just go 55 miles per hour? Why can't
Yeah.
you just let me go? Come on, it's got to be a
Uh-huh.
race.
Yeah.
But I'm willing to race. I'm
Yeah.
willing to race.
It's like one thing I have to remind myself is, you know what? Those drivers that are acting disrespectful or whatever, maybe they're going through something really horrible. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
you gotta treat everyone with empathy. You
you
know,
truly never know.
even the
Yeah.
bad people, you don't have to acknowledge them or feed into them at all or
Mhm.
even give them any kind of whatever, but you got to acknowledge that
Yeah.
probably coming from a very hurt place, and you don't have
Mhm.
to affiliate with them or whatever, but you can forgive them without saying that you forgive them. You know what I'm saying?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna wrap
That
things up.
was
We've had a great conversation,
yeah, that was very delightful.
and you've imparted so much to me. One thing I do at the end of my podcast is I say, one thing that I'm appreciative of, and I appreciate your patience with telling me things, and because I'm, like I said, I'm from the older generation. I'm the cis man, so I don't know a lot of these things. So I've learned a lot today, about perspective and that sort of thing, and that's why I invite people on the show, is because I want to get all perspectives. So I really appreciate your vulnerability, your courage coming out here and being so open with me on our show and sharing that with other men who are going to see that, because it's very important, for us to, talking about empathy, to see what people from different communities go through and what their experience with masculinity is, and knowing that it's not going to be the same. So I appreciate you educating me and being so vulnerable and being so brave.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you being open to receiving what I have to say, first of all. Um, and I'm appreciative of the space too, because I'm not gonna lie, podcasts freak me out. I do
Yeah.
love a podcast, but I mostly I mostly listen to women.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But no, this is very nice. This is very lovely.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Awesome. Okay, cool. With
Okay.
that, I will wrap it up. I have my
Gonna say,
little,
how should we end this?
yeah. That's it for today's episode of The Other Side of Tough. I'm Jack Starr, reminding you that real strength is found on the other side. Catch you on the next time. Thank you so much, Kyle. You have a great weekend, and I'll give you the link to this, and you can share it. And do you have anything else that you want to plug or share, real quick before we sign off?
Oh, sure. We mentioned it a couple times, but my short film is streaming on OTV's website. It's weareO.tv. It's called Eat. Watch it. It's subscription based, but they do have a 2-week free trial. Give it a try, give it a go, and yeah, learn something.
All right, cool. I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to watch that right now.
Oh, period. I appreciate it.
All right, Kyle, you have a great weekend.
Thanks, you too. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me.